Welcome back to the Winter Growers Podcast. Today, my guest is John Dindia of Lakeview Hill Farm in Traverse City, Michigan. John and his partner Bailey designed and built their farm from the ground up beginning in 2017 on a 58-acre property with 10 acres of available farmland and a 35-acre woodlot. Now, with 2.5 acres in production, they have 5 30 by 148 heated greenhouses, a dedicated propagation house connected to a production barn, 7 20 by 148 cat tunnels, plus their farm is 75% solar powered, and they are committed to utilizing renewable energy in all aspects of their farm. 70% of gross sales is allocated to wholesale, including grocery stores, restaurants, and a growers cooperative CSA, all within 15 miles of the farm. The rest comes from an on-site farm stand that they are expanding into a full-service farm store this summer. John and Bailey have been full-time on their farm since the beginning, plus they have 5 year-round employees with 4 staff on salary. John and I dig into the details of the heating systems he uses to maintain crop productivity during the cold, gray winters of Michigan, as well as the support he and Bailey access to finance the startup and growth of their farm business, including loans through FSA. I really enjoyed our conversation, and John offers a ton of expertise and experience for farmers looking to improve their winter growing systems and mindfully grow their farm business for the long haul.
Today's episode of the Winter Growers Podcast is brought to you by BCS America. BCS two-wheel tractors are designed and built in Italy, where small-scale farming has been a way of life for generations. Discover the beauty of BCS on your farm with PTO-driven implements for soil working, shredding cover crops, spreading compost, mowing under fences, clearing snow, and much more, all powered by a single gear-driven machine that's tailored to the size and scale of your operation. We have been using a BCS tractor on our farm since 2014, and it has saved the day and leveled the workload more times than I can count, and I find new ways to employ it every single season. To learn more, view sale pricing, or locate your nearest dealer, visit bcsamerica.com. That's bcsamerica.com. To learn more, view sale pricing, or locate your nearest dealer, visit bcsamerica.com. That's bcsamerica.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Farmer's Friend. In a world where the threat of food insecurity is quickly becoming the new norm, Farmer's Friend exists to equip, educate, and inspire growers to change the world through regenerative agriculture. Small farms are the future, and the future is now. If you need quality tools and supplies for your vegetable or flower operation, check out their growing selection of innovative and affordable tunnels, tools, tarps, and much more. Here at my home farm, we rely heavily on Farmer's Friend for our production. We have 3 of their Caterpillar tunnels. We use the silage tarps for occultation. Their row covers have gotten us through hard winters. And of course, the Quick Cut Greens Harvester has sped up our baby greens harvest tremendously. Visit farmersfriend.com/no-till today. That's farmersfriend.com/no-till, or visit the link in the show notes and get free shipping on your entire order. All right, enjoy the show.
Hi, John. Welcome to the Winter Growers Podcast.
Hi, Clara. Thank you for having me here.
It's so good to have you. So you farm with your partner, Bailey. And when I polled listeners at the end of season 3 about recommendations for new farmers for the next season, your names kept coming up. And I was really excited to learn about your farm and your background. So you guys are kind of new to me, and I'm really excited to have you on the show.
Thank you.
So let's get started, jump into a little bit more about your background, how you got into farming. First off, you are located in Traverse City, Michigan. So maybe we should sort of orient everyone where you are. You're at the 45th parallel, which is, I always like finding farms that are kind of in this range because I can relate more to some of the conditions you're dealing with. So maybe describe quickly where you're located first.
Sure, yeah. So we're located in Traverse City, Michigan. That we're in the northwest part of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. We're right on Lake Michigan. We're only a couple miles away, and we're located essentially what's on like the Grand Traverse Bay. It's a big bay. in Lake Michigan, and there's a long peninsula that we're a part of that sticks out into Lake Michigan, and we're kind of at the base of that peninsula. As mentioned, we're on the 45th parallel. We often on a daily drive pass, the sign that says 45th parallel, and the climate is technically like a 6A, but I would probably say it's more of like a 5B normally. It's usually just our maximum or like the minimum low. Usually doesn't get that cold. Just because of the lake, and we usually have western winds. We do have quite a bit of snowfall annually, which is very similar to like a Buffalo, New York style. We get a lot of lake effect squalls. So we're usually under consistent snow cover, especially like more or less December through March. And it's usually extremely cloudy in November, December, January, February. Like this year, we didn't even see the sun. I think it was like 6 hours of sunlight for the entire month of January.
Wow.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing.
I was just going to say, seasonal affective disorder, anyone?
Yeah. But besides that, it's pretty nice location. It's more or less a very much like tourist vacation based town. There are a lot of year round residents that live here, but the population like quadruples in the summer. It's kind of nice. We're about an hour and a half from the nearest freeway. So we do kind of like live in, it's nice in that sense. I like it. It's more isolated and quiet. There's not so much like hustle and bustle of urban city living around here. It's very rural, but there's a nice population of people who have a relatively well-off income, so it's created a nice area to start a organic produce farm.
Yeah, and so your farm is somewhat rural, but you have access within 15 miles to all of your markets, so you don't have to go very far, correct?
Yeah, our markets are all within Traverse City. That being said, the distance from the freeway, and we're in Traverse City is the largest city in Northwest Michigan, the largest population base. It really if we wanted to start really expanding our market, we'd be doing, like 3-hour drives or realistically having to work with a distributor. So the market is limited, but it's pretty nice for the size it is.
That's great. Yeah. I always find it fascinating, the difference between, like rural and then remote, because I would consider, my family farm, Four Season Farm, to be remote. I mean, it's rural and remote, but everything is far away. It's kind of interesting to see how you then satisfy, the markets and the ability to increase production and expand when you are that remote. So it's great to see your farm has kind of you're rural, but you have access to a great market.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
So I'd love to hear more about your background first. Where did you grow up? How did you get sort of bitten by the farming bug? Education, just all that stuff. I always find it so fascinating, especially because the majority of people I speak to really didn't have a farming background. And it's great to see how you came to it.
Yeah. So I grew up just north of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. My dad grew up in Petoskey, Michigan, which is about an hour and a half north of here in Traverse City. And we vacationed there in Petoskey my entire life. And it kind of grew up as like a second home for me. And after I graduated high school, I went to Michigan State University to get a degree in sustainable organic horticulture from Michigan State. To kind of backtrack slightly, it is kind of like both my parents were professors, communication professors. So we didn't have any no, I'm a first generation farmer type of thing. And I did get this spark of interest in horticulture and farming in high school. I don't quite know why. I built a small attached greenhouse to the back of our garage and grew tomatoes and peppers all winter and summer long. At that point, it was very a large interest in hydroponics. It just kind of was, wow, I don't know how I came across it, but I was like, well, this is so crazy that you can do this. My parents were both very supportive. So that took me to horticulture at Michigan State. There, I kind of ran into the student organic farm. And that's where my passion for, especially organic food production, living soils, and everything else kind of evolved. Through the whole college period, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I didn't really, becoming a farmer didn't 100% really cross my mind. After I graduated, I was kind of well, what do I do now with my life? And I just kind of decided to start a small 1/4 acre market garden on family property, just out of like, after reading all your dad's books and then reading JM's books kind of came out around the same time. So I was like, well, let's just do it and have fun. And I just kind of like spiraled out of control after that. I brought a friend on to co-run the farm with me the year after that. And we leased land, and we ran that farm, which is a really small, very intensive, like kind of like the classic market garden style. Never got more than like a half acre, everything done by hand. And then I went to grad school at the University of Montana in 2016 or so. Just decided to take a break from it all. About like one semester in, I was like, oh, I'm going crazy. I can't handle this. I need to get back to farming type of thing.
What were you going to grad school for?
Oh, it was an environmental studies program with a focus on food and farming systems. It was more or less a full ride scholarship. It was kind of like an opportunity where I was like, well, I feel like it'd be foolish to not take this offer up type of thing. And I'm glad I finished the program and I didn't make it all the way through, but we ended up buying our current farm, like the property we're on, halfway through my grad program, and we started like building it out kind of immediately. And that was in 2017. And I met Bailey. We met traveling in Ecuador, kind of like a weird thing that happens. We're both from the same town, more or less. So we met in Ecuador, and we got along great. So we've been together since 2016, and we bought this farm in 2017, and we've been here since. And so we're on 58 acres in Traverse City, Michigan. It's beautiful, like rolling hill landscape, all hardwood trees. The farm's, it's about 35 acres of, hardwood woodlot. And then there's kind of like a flat 10-acre valley that we farm in, and the rest is just rolling hills.
Before we get into more of the farm details, what's Bailey's background? Can you just quickly describe?
Yeah. So Bailey grew up just north of Flint, Michigan. She has, once again, no farming background. Before we met, she had developed a large interest in cooking and eating healthy and all that stuff. And then when we met, I kind of brought her into the farming world, and that became a big passion of hers. But once again, it's like all new. And she has a degree and background in business management and business admin. And so that both of our technical knowledge and skills have really like paired together well for running the business.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great compliment for sure.
Yeah.
And how did you randomly meet in Ecuador?
We were just both traveling. So it wasn't 100% random. We were both traveling. We both have a passion for traveling in foreign countries and stuff like that in the winter. And we were both traveling there, and a friend was like, hey, I just realized that you're both in Ecuador together, or you're both in Ecuador at the same time. Like, I should put you two in touch. And we just so happened to like be in the same city and made the connection. Then we traveled for a few months together after that.
That's so great. Well,
yeah.
I always love those stories. So it was meant to be.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so I'm really curious about how you found this farm property, and how do you own it? Do you lease it? What is all that background too?
Sure. So we just, we bought it conventionally type of thing. It's we were just like looking for property, and we're really lucky that we got it when we did, which was in 2017. The real estate market is relatively hot, but but now it's like, we probably couldn't afford it anymore. And it was just lucky with 58 acres. So everything is financed through FSA. We have a really good relationship with our farm service agency loan officers in Traverse City, which, the first few loans were pulling teeth to get them to fund us. But after that, it's, with the success, it's been a really great relationship, and we can talk about that. But we just got our first loan this year, which was like a joint loan with FSA and then a different conventional lender. But up till then, everything's been financed through FSA.
And let's talk about that. What did that look like at the beginning? How did you know about it? How did you have someone that put you in touch with the right person? Again, all of these things are obviously not as common with the small scale farming approach. So I'd love to learn more about that.
So we just knew of FSA, and I reached out. It worked out. FSA does require 3 years of farm management in order to be eligible. So I was lucky that I had owned my previous farm for 3 years before that, of which that farm we only ever got like a Kiva loan and other like very small lending sources for like small operating equipment. And FSA, it's a good thing. It's a lot of paperwork, which is monotonous, but at the same time, beyond the paperwork, they're really making you prove that you're going to be successful and make sure that you have a well thought out business plan. They're not just like a regular bank who's like, sure, why not, type of thing. They're making sure that you're going to do the right thing because they don't want you to fail, and then they don't want to deal with it if you fail, type of thing. But at first it was difficult. They weren't so hot on the property, and the property is a large chunk of it is financed through family, because FSA was like, well, why should we finance 58 acres if you can only farm 10 of it? And we were like a new farm, and they weren't so sure of our business plan, and they were somewhat skeptical. When we were giving them the numbers of sales, they're like, I don't know, this seems kind of skeptical that you could actually make this much money on that small piece of land. So they were only willing to lend so much at the beginning. And we just took advantage of what we could get. And then each year we've kind of been going in saying like, look, we're doing good. We need more money. And so on and so forth. And the interest rates are just like incredibly low through FSA, especially like pre-2020. It was just like almost free money.
Would you recommend it to young farmers starting out? Is it something you would definitely recommend?
I mean, it's tough because I hear a lot of horror stories about FSA from other farmers. I've also heard good stories. And I think the biggest thing is developing that relationship with your loan officer. And I think you really got to, the market garden style approach is probably new to your loan officer. And you're going to want to show them, hopefully find financials from another farm that's similar that you can show them and be like, hey, this is an example of what we're trying to do, and look at them, like they have this, and they're going to want to see proof of your market and stuff like that. But so FSA is like 3%. Right now, everybody else is like 8% interest. So you can't beat it. It's worth the extra paperwork and time and everything else involved.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, could young farmers listening who are interested reach out to you to ask questions or,
Well, of course.
Yeah. Cause I think it just seems like something that isn't as commonly practiced or known of, and again, maybe it's because of misconceptions or challenges that you mentioned. So it'd be great to have other people supporting the process. So. Yeah.
The amount of paperwork is overwhelming, but if you have a college degree, you've done plenty of paperwork. It's nothing like hard or complicated. It's just being organized and taking care of all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. And then is it something, do you have sort of a plan with it in terms of like when you want to pay it off, or is it going to be something that's just continuously part of your business plan?
It's all there's at this point we have, I don't even know, like 6 or 7 different loans, maybe more than that. And they're all financed different depending upon whether it's like infrastructure or equipment, which would be like any other loan. So a lot of the equipment loans are 7-year terms, and a lot of the infrastructures, either like 30 or 40 years. And they all have different like interest rates depending upon when they were opened. Generally speaking, I wouldn't necessarily building a building with FSA is a lot more work than a conventional loan, because they require all these extra quotes and all this information, kind of just like government stuff. But if you're buying like equipment and operating supplies and that kind of stuff, it's really easy. I wouldn't say not to do a building. We've done it before in the past. It's just going to be more work, but buying a tractor is buying a tractor.
And so the property you purchased had no infrastructure on it when you purchased it. Is that correct?
Correct. It's just a vacant lot. Yeah.
Okay. So you've built home, outbuildings, everything. And how much of that was FSA? How much was traditional bank loans or family help?
Oh, I don't know. 60% FSA, maybe a little bit more than that. A lot of we built our house. So we built a house, but building a house through FSA gets really complicated. And it's all this is that for the farm or is it not for the farm type of thing. So we just kind of I built the house myself. So I built it. We're still building the house 6 years later. So we've just been building it with cash as we get it type of thing. Versus doing that through FSA. But like our wash pack was built out through FSA funds. The greenhouses, our head house room, walk-in cooler, those kinds of things. We have like a storage barn, like just another pole barn for a shop and storage, and that was financed through FSA. That's pretty straightforward.
What about grants and other assistance out there through the USDA? Have you sought any of that assistance or?
Yeah, we have. We're pretty good with grants and other forms of financing. I mean, one, everybody should develop a really good relationship with their NRCS officer as well. So Natural Resource Conservation Service. I mean, everybody knows about the Hoop House program. We've gotten like 5 or 6 of those. And then we financed a ton of other like small projects that like are worth my time, but don't really, financially might not make sense. Like we planted hedgerows and windbreaks, pollinator habitats, cover crops. We have a forest, like a sustainable forest management plan for our woodlot that they paid for. So it's a whole written out plan on how to manage that for timber, and a bunch of other stuff too. So definitely develop a relationship with NRCS. And then as far as grants and loans, we've applied for a few grants through the state of Michigan, through the MDARD office, so Michigan Department of Ag and Rural Development. And we've gotten a few of those grants, which are pretty big. And we can talk about the projects that we're using with those funds. Hopefully by the time this is released, we'll have been awarded the second grant through MDARD, which would be really cool for a new project. And then we are in the process of applying for a USDA VAPG grant. So a value added producer grant, which is a big $250,000 grant. And then we've gotten a bunch of smaller grants for renewable energies. So those are mostly the REAP program, the USD REAP, Rural Energy for America, and a few other small ones.
Yeah, no, I mean, all this is great. I mean, it's sort of trying to wrap my head around the amount of time it must be taking you to manage both applying and dealing with all the, logistics for doing all this. I mean, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is. And we recently brought on we've had the staff member 2 years, but we brought on a staff member who has a lot of professional experience, and she's been doing quite a bit of the technical grant writing for us. We've been paying her to do that. And I'm completely capable. It's just like time spent doing it, but she's great. Yeah. And we go back and forth. So she's written the MDARD grants, and we hired a group to write the USDA VAPG grant. And I could share their information with you too, because they're just such a great resource. And for those who don't know, the USDA VAPG grant, it's like a 200-something page application. And they've done it all for us. And we have to pay them for it, but it's been a great relationship working with them. And we're part of like a growers cooperative. I'm on the board for a small growers cooperative, and the growers co-op had the same group write the grant for them last year. And there's a bunch of other farmers, some of which you've interviewed, that have also used this group for the USDA VAPG grant.
Yeah, no, it's so great. I love listening to young farmers these days, because there is so much more of this collective, collaborative approach to farming than, maybe some of the older generation, because it felt like there was more of this individualistic mindset and approach. It's like, oh, we got to just go out there and do it on our own and figure it out, which is great. But at the same time, it feels like you can miss out on so many of these other resources and support systems that are out there. They just may not be tailored to the small scale farm.
100%. And a lot of the larger grant funding that we've gotten isn't, it's not necessarily like you don't want to apply for it on year one of farming. It's geared towards people who've been established for a while and are looking for market expansion. So you want to get your feet set, get your market established. And then when you're ready to say, I'm ready to grow, that's when you apply for these larger grants.
Yeah. And it also seems like it really can help set the foundation to, provide for profitability that often is elusive and difficult for a lot of young farmers starting out. So,
yeah. The grants really help them.
Yeah. But even the loans, yes, it might feel counterintuitive. Oh, I'm taking out all this debt, but it does leverage your ability to grow so much faster.
100%. Unless you have a bunch of cash coming in, I feel like taking out loans are necessary, and it's a part of business. And yeah, you're feeding this capitalistic, entity, and somebody's making money off of you not having any money. But it's necessary, and you should use it as a tool.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And if we want to play in the, like you said, in the capitalistic world that we live in, we have to sort of play by some of these rules too. So, well, great. Well, thank you for the overview on all that. So many more questions, but let's talk more about your farm itself. Can you give kind of a layout, like, sort of describe visually how it's laid out, including all the high tunnels, infrastructure, all of that?
Yeah. So we are a certified organic produce operation. We specialize in hoop house and greenhouse production. Our major crops are summer fruiting, like early season summer fruiting crops, heirloom tomatoes or heirloom style tomatoes, and cucumbers, peppers, eggplant. Not so much eggplant. We just have a large market, but I like growing it. And then leafy greens. So we grow a lot of baby leaf greens, spinach, kale, arugula, and Salanova lettuce. And then like microgreens and shoots. And that's roughly, those altogether are probably 70% of our gross sales. And then we grow a smattering of other vegetables for like direct to market sales and some wholesale. At the same time, about 70% of our gross sales are wholesale. Probably about 70% of that 70% it goes to retail grocery stores. So most of the greens are all in prepackaged clamshells with professional labels and UPC barcodes and whatnot. And then the summer fruits are kind of like bulk, and then the rest is restaurants. We did attend one summer Saturday farmers market in Traverse City for every year since we started. We also have like a on-farm self-serve farm stand, which has grown significantly. And we're currently, we just bought a new property, 2 lots down, with a 1890s single-room schoolhouse that we're building out to be a new farm market. And the plan is to no longer do the farmers market and then get rid of the self-serve farm stand and then open this new farm market in this schoolhouse this summer. So that's been the plan.
And what was, I know my reasons why I would want to have an on-site farm stand or farm store, but what were your reasons to sort of, move away from the farmers market model and into?
A few reasons. Up till 2020, Bailey and I did the farmers market together up through 2020. So it's been 2 summers now where we haven't done the farmers market, just the 2 of us every single weekend. And it's realistically, it's not like you're going to not work one day of the week when you do the farmers market. So you're working 6 days a week, like officially on the clock type of thing. And it's been really hard for us to find staff to do the markets on Saturdays since we've decided to not do it. And we have been doing like a rotation for the past 2 years with staff, where we all kind of like rotate and we're doing it one weekend a month. But even then, it's been struggle. None of the staff members enjoy it or like doing it because it's just Saturday work. Sales are also, just, everybody knows sales at the farmers market's unpredictable, weather dependent. It's a good market for our area, but it's not massive. The most we've ever been able to walk away with is like 3,000 and change. It's not like we're going to like a big city market, come back with like $8,000. And we just felt like time ratio wise, it's in so many ways it's easier to just sell wholesale because there are a lot more farmers markets that we could do, but we only ever did this one. And then the on-farm markets, it's so easy. And we can talk about the self-serve farm stand, which has been, for starting out, it's just like, it's amazing. And we just have like a insulated Amish built shed. We have like a iPad in there with square registers set up for self-serve checkout, a couple display coolers. We have like a mini split air conditioning and heating unit in there. And it's just like been fantastic. Last year, that was like a little over 20% of our gross sales. And it's just like, you just stock it a couple times a day and don't worry about it.
Is that open 5 days a week, 6 days a week? What's that?
So like the sticker on the store is open like 6 days a week from certain hours, but we also are very privileged to live in a very safe area where we just leave it completely unlocked 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. So people just show up, like the locals more or less just know that. They just show up whenever they want.
That's
We usually
great.
don't stock it on Sundays, just as a practice to try to not work as much on the weekends, but usually there's leftover from Saturdays.
So that the schoolhouse you've purchased, that is going to become the full-time farm store. Is that you're going to migrate everything over to the new site?
Yeah, and there's a long story behind the whole thing that gets involved with the state and the health department, that kind of stuff. But essentially, we used to sell like other farm products from other farms, as well as like eggs that aren't ours. We don't have chickens that lay eggs, and cheese and that kind of stuff. And we got shut down from that. And long story short, we've been told that someone has to work there. There has to be a bathroom, et cetera, et cetera. We have to be more or less be a grocery store to sell that. So this schoolhouse already has a bathroom, and it'll have to be staffed. So it'll be like a retail store, more or less.
But that feels like a good move for your business at this point in time, where you're really sort of expanding into that new market.
Yeah, we think so. We've run all the numbers. We do have to pay someone to be there, so that costs quite a bit. But and we don't think we're going to get it on year one, but we're hoping within year 2 or 3 it'll be fully profitable. Having to staff is expensive, even just one person, when you kind of like add that all up.
Yeah.
And profit margin on grocery sales it's not like you're selling clothing and doubling the markup.
Right.
So we'll see what happens. It's definitely like I feel like the riskiest business venture we've taken, but we feel like it's appropriate and a risk worth taking.
Yeah. And so then, when that happens, then you'll have, so what is it? 70% of your sales will still be sort of direct wholesale, and then 30% to this market. Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah. At this point, we're not really looking to grow our wholesale sales. We're really happy with where that's been. We're really trying to grow our direct to market sales through the farm store. And, we do, like, the other advantage is we capture, a lot of our products are retail ready already. So all the clamshells and packaging. So they're going to another grocery store, and we're losing 30% of those sales. So we're hoping to recapture some of that.
Yeah. No, that's great. It'll be interesting to see over time if that percentage starts to shift, more towards the farm store. So, yeah.
I hope so. That's what we're going for. And, even if we take away from wholesale sales, that's fine. We're adding a plant sale as well. We've been doing a plant sale now for 2 years, but we're trying to the focus is at this point to try to bring people to the farm rather than send the farm out type of concept.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's such an important point because, as easy as sort of direct wholesale can be with just the ability to harvest, pack, ship it off and, not have to think about it, you lose all that control over your product once it's at that retail store. You don't necessarily get to monitor the quality of it once it's left your farm. So yeah. Well, that's good. That's great to hear. So let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about the farm layout again. How many how are you producing all this stuff?
Yeah. So, when we started the farm, there's kind of like this long, slender 9 to 10 acre flat land in the farm. And we kind of built the main production area, right in the middle of that, long kind of rectangular thing. And when we started out, the first thing we built was a giant pole barn. And it's a 40 by 96 pole barn with 2 16-foot lean-tos off each side. And we kind of segmented the barn up into different sections, like garage, like employee / warehousing space, our wash pack, and then our house is in another part of it. And it's a big barn. I mean, it's a 17 foot tall, so half of it, or about 3/4 of it, has 2 stories. We have one greenhouse attached to this barn, and this is our propagation space. And all of our greenhouses are 34 by 148, so just over 5,000 square feet. And that greenhouse is our production space. It also is half in ground, like soil production. And then we have currently 4 other greenhouses, so 5 total. And we're going to be building one more, and that's the plan to kind of like cap it at 6. 5,000 square foot greenhouses. They're all the same greenhouse, purchased through Nolt's Midwest Produce Supplies. It's like the Zimmerman 34-foot wide tunnels. We've done some modifications to them and kind of built them our own way. It's not really like 100% like kit. It's kind of like a figure it yourself out kit kind of greenhouse. We like them. We have like 6.5 foot sidewalls, and we have all of those. And then so that's a little over a half acre. And then we have 7 20 by 148 foot long like caterpillar tunnels, more or less like a farmer's friend style. But we built them ourselves just because they're 20 feet wide and there's a little bit more bracing. They are like a permanent structure, but the cost per square foot is really cheap, and we don't ever move them. And we like them. We can take the end walls completely off and drive the tractor through the entire thing. And we treat those kind of like a 3-season structure, just trying to get crops in the summer or spring, summer, and fall, and then kind of like done by Christmas time.
Do you uncover them then in the winter?
We don't uncover, but we have all the peak vents like fully open, and it freezes in there, and we don't do like there's no supplemental heat or anything like that in those tunnels. In the greenhouses, there's supplemental heat in all of the greenhouses.
And do you not use any of those caterpillar tunnels in the winter because you don't need that space, or it's too difficult to manage? What would be the reason?
Too difficult to manage. In my opinion, the amount of time it takes to put row cover on and take row cover off like every moment of sunlight is just probably financially not worth it, in my opinion. It's a huge commitment, like the daily uncovering and recovering. So if we put frost fabric on, frost fabric goes on, it stays on. And we'll like peel it back to harvest, but then put it back on. We're not doing the daily shuffle type of thing.
So all the other tunnels, they're all minimally heated or heated to some capacity, correct?
They all have heat.
Have heat. Okay.
We don't necessarily heat it, but like spinach, we don't heat it, but it's nice. We can like this morning it was like 15 degrees outside last night, so spinach is solid, frozen solid, and we just flick the heat on and come back a half hour later and harvest it, and then turn the heat off, and it works great. But other stuff like Salanova spinach, baby kale, arugula, we do minimally heat that to 32 degrees just to keep it from freezing. And we don't use row cover. We've also found with row cover on those, we used to do like a row cover, same concept, put it on, don't take it off unless we're going to overhead water. But the humidity would build up too much under there. And if you were doing the daily venting, I don't think you'd have that issue, but we found that you couldn't put the row cover on and leave it there. You'd get like too much moisture buildup. So we just took it off.
So none of the tunnels have any inner layer in them?
The greenhouses don't. No.
Yeah, sorry, the greenhouse tunnel. I know, all the words get so interchangeable.
Yeah.
So none of the large 34 by 148 greenhouses have any inner layer in them?
We don't, no.
Okay. And would you ever use it on spinach or anything if you were getting down to, 30 below or anything like that? Or
we really don't even get that cold.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
No. It's just because of the lake.
Yeah.
I mean, we have gotten to 30 below, but it's like one night. I mean, maybe we have the row cover and would use it if we felt like we needed it. But we're also we use it, and we'll talk about this. We have a big wood boiler that we use for our heat, and about 70% of our heat does come from the wood boiler, but we also have natural gas, and natural gas is incredibly cheap. So I bet you it'd still be cheaper to just run the natural gas for one night than to drag the row cover out for one night.
Yeah. Cheaper, financially, not necessarily environmentally, but
for sure. But it's tough. I mean, there's only so many people working on the farm and only so many hours in the day. And so you gotta weigh the pros and cons of everything. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, 100%. I mean, it's always a dilemma. I mean, that's what's so challenging. Yeah. With some of this winter farming stuff.
Yeah. It's tough. Yeah.
So no, it's great, but it's great to hear that you've built in, the heating capacity, for all of these greenhouses to mitigate a lot of the challenges that winter farmers can have. I love how you might have a really cold night, and then in the spinach house, you flip on the heat for half an hour and then you can harvest it rather than having to wait until midday for the sun to come out, or at least, the temperatures to get warm enough to be able to harvest it. So,
yeah. And we did the same. I mean, I think that oftentimes like farm owners, they need to say my time is worth X number of dollars. And it should really be at a minimum $50 an hour. and then say, does this task pay for itself or not? Because there's all these like small repetitive things that I think people could just think is like normal life, like rolling the sides up on tunnels and stuff like that, where it's like, if you add up all those hours, it's like, you should buy electric roll-ups, like period. Or like for our Caterpillar tunnels, like we don't ever even do the daily shuffle with the sides. We don't have peak vents, but the piece of plastic on the peaks is a flap, so we just leave that flap open all the time. And I mean, if there's like 3 different settings, it's winter, spring / fall, and summer. And in the summer, the sides are pushed up and the end walls are off. In the spring and fall, maybe the end walls are off, but the sides are down, and in the winter, everything's on. We don't ever do like the daily shuffle with those. It's just too much labor.
Yeah.
And then all the greenhouses have electric roll-up sides, which are amazing.
Today's episode of the Winter Growers Podcast is brought to you by Rimmel Greenhouses.
Whether it's tomatoes to market, flowers in the spring, or your family's harvest, growing in a greenhouse protected from the weather provides the right environment that you need for a harvest that you can count on. Rimmel Greenhouses are designed for durability and offer the quality that you need to grow productively year-round. Visit rimmelgreenhouses.com to get a quote today.
If I may editorialize for a second, I own a Rimmel tunnel. I love it. We built it ourselves, and I really appreciated the quality of the tunnel as well as the customer service we received in the process. So make sure to check them out. Today's episode is also brought to you by Johnny's Selected Seeds. Since 1973, Johnny's has supported farmers and gardeners with superior seeds, tools, and information to help ensure their growing success and help feed their communities and families. The research farm is at the heart of Johnny's, where they trial thousands of varieties and tools every year. Their breeding program uniquely focuses on introducing varieties that meet the needs or solve the challenges mixed market, small farmers, and avid gardeners face. Visit johnnyseeds.com for innovative new varieties and time-tested favorites to grow this season. You can also browse their online growers library, link in the description, for a wealth of free educational resources. The employee owners at Johnny's look forward to growing with you. All right, back to the show.
I want to talk about the heating system. You mentioned the wood boiler that you use. What is that operating or accessible for all the greenhouses, or is that just for the prop house? What's the setup?
Sure. So kind of take one step back. When we started the farm, I've had a big passion since high school for greenhouses. And we wanted to start this farm that was focused on greenhouse production. Well, the one downside of greenhouse production is the energy use, whether it's sustainable or not. You have a high energy input setting. So I said, well, the only way we're going to do this is if we can really use renewables to a large degree. And we've kind of gone as far as solar goes that our utility company will let us. And so we have about a 40 kilowatt solar system. It's a little bit bigger. And that supplies, like, it used to be quite a bit. As the farm has grown, it's decreased, and we just added LED lights into our whole prop house this past winter. So now the dynamics totally changed, and we're going to look into other options for more solar panels. But it was covering 90% at the beginning, and it's probably more like 60 to 70% now. In the summer, our utility bills are like a couple $100, and in the winter, they're a couple thousand. And it's like the same energy use. It's just like how much the panels are producing. And the solar panels, they pay for themselves really quickly, like a couple of years. It should be it's a really good return on investment, a smart decision for any farmer out there. And then we bought a really big wood boiler, and it's called a Garn boiler system. The farm on that island out by you guys,
North Haven. yeah,
yeah,
Farm.
my buddy used to manage that, and he told me all about his horror stories with it, and I don't mind ours too bad. But it's a big wood boiler. We feed cordwood, so logs. So we have to buck and split all the logs ourselves. This boiler essentially like heats 95 to 100% of the heat for our house, the main production barn, and then our prop house, which is heated year round. Like right now it's 70 during the day and 65 at night. And so that heats that. We burn about 25 full cord a year. And so I think I told you that's like a cord is 4 by 4 by 8. So this is 4 by 4 by 200 something feet long. It's a lot of wood and it's a lot of labor. But it is still cheaper than natural gas, even with labor inputted. That being said, we don't save too much.
Is that wood coming from your woodlot that you mentioned you have on your property?
It is and it isn't. So you can only timber so much sustainably on the property. So the first year we did have a timber company come in and we bought back all of the like pulp wood. So anything that was going to go to the cardboard mill, we bought back all those logs, and that was enough wood to supply us for about 3 years. This summer we did have to buy pulp grade like firewood logs from a logging company. But we'll probably re-timber in 10 years and get another big supply. We're currently looking at switching to like a chip boiler, so a wood chip boiler, and that would be we're trying to find a bunch of grants because it's a big project, probably about $500,000. But we would be able to eliminate all natural gas use and then feed everything off of the chip boiler, which would be cool. And then the other nice thing is that all the chips would more or less be free from tree waste, from tree service companies and other sources of wood, which is generally speaking waste wood that is not utilized well. So that would be really cool.
And what is the labor involved with maintaining that?
Well, your daily work with the chip boiler is just feeding it. So that the chip boiler has a big hopper that you essentially just would take your tractor loader and dump, buckets and buckets of wood chips into this big hopper, and then it has an auger that self feeds the boiler. So the boiler kind of turns on and turns off on its own and speeds up, kind of like a pizza oven. It can just push the pizza through faster or slower, depending upon how much heat you need. And then there's just routine maintenance, so cleaning and everything else involved. But
that's a daily feeding. So someone has to daily feed.
It depends on how big you build your hopper. I think ideally you build a hopper that can handle about a week's worth of wood, week's worth of chips. But I mean, it's a big thing. That's why it's a $500,000 project, a 1,000 square foot hopper.
And currently with the system you have, how frequently are you loading that?
Oh yeah. So we burn 4 times a day. You can put about like 150 pounds of wood in there or so. We just do that 4 times a day. The boiler is like attached to the barn, so it's not like we gotta go trudge through the snow to feed it type of thing. And it's in an enclosed garage facility, and we stack and we built all these like wood racks that hold a half cord on top of pallets, and so we just fork the pallets of wood into the boiler room and then just feed right off of that.
And what is its capacity? Like how warm could you heat some of those greenhouses if you want? I know you have the one at 70 in the prop house, but what about the other ones? Could you heat them higher if you wanted to or needed to?
Yeah. Yes and no. I mean, the Garn boiler system is unique in the sense of that the Garn boiler has a giant water jacket around it. So ours is it's a 2,000 gallon water jacket that surrounds the burn chamber. So most outdoor wood boilers that you see only have like a couple hundred gallons of water in the whole system. And so this one's got 2,000 gallons. So it's a big thermal mass. So we can do a bunch of burns all day long to get that water. When I wake up in the morning at 6 o'clock, the water temp's 120. And then we'll do burns all day long and get that water up to just below boiling by night when we throw our last one in. And then it kind of like drains from that heat all night. So that's one thing. I don't ever wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning to throw wood in the boiler. It doesn't sound fun.
Sorry. I mean,
totally true. But so if you wanted to wake up at 2 o'clock and do a couple more burns, you could. But and there's no damper valve, so it's a high efficiency gasification boiler. So the emissions levels are at par with your standard natural gas or propane boiler or burner. And so it burns the wood really hot, really fast. It doesn't it's not and there's no smoke either, which is the reason for the emissions. So you're kind of just burning the wood as hot as fast and then trying to collect as much of that heat into the water jacket. It is rated, I forget what. I mean, it can do over 500,000 BTUs, I think, which is quite a bit. That's a 5,000 square foot greenhouse that can be heated to more or less 70 degrees on a 20 degree day, plus the barn and everything else. And the barn is all in floor heat The greenhouse also has in half of it where the prop house is a concrete slab with in-floor heat, which does really help with that, because that we get that slab up to 75 degrees during the day, and then it kind of like it's a big thermal mass through the whole night.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's you've got a lot of infrastructure here. It's fascinating to hear how you've built all of this out. Now, when in some of the questions I asked before this interview, I was sort of curious about the profitability with adding heat, and one of the things you said is that you don't think it's still profitable based on the heating costs and the labor. So I'm curious then, how do you justify?
Well, I think it is. I mean, I think it is profitable.
Okay.
I don't know if there's miscommunication. I think that if you're on propane, you've really got to reconsider, because that's significantly more expensive. But I mean, in the prop house, we're growing a lot of most of the money coming out of that's like microgreens and shoots, and that's become a pretty big chunk of the business. About 30% probably of our gross sales, and it started from zero, to we've grown it slow and steady, and it's been we've had to build that market per se. It's never been there from day one, and I would highly encourage growers to get into that business, just because it is highly profitable compared to other products to produce microgreens and shoots. And it's like we don't live in a place where we could have the entire farm run off of microgreens and shoots. Like, we don't have the market for that, but we maximize the market that we can with it. But I mean, overall utility costs are, less than probably 6% of our gross sales. So it's kind of insignificant. Generally speaking, we've found that heating more, like it pays for itself. I mean, if you look at all the tomato, part of me, I don't know how tomato growers are growing tomatoes in Canada under lights and heat all winter long, but they do it, and they've been doing it for years. So if they're making money doing it, selling tomatoes to Sam's Club, I'm sure you could do it, and you're getting significantly more money. Now, we don't grow tomatoes in January and stuff like that, but as an example.
Right. Yeah. No, it was just more, I think I had asked about the challenges of winter growing, and, your response was, unpredictable weather, and that winter production is significantly less profitable due to the electric and heating costs of the tunnels. So it was just, you were talking about how it's significantly less. And I was just kind of curious how you justify it, or, why do you make it a priority? And then my other question is then it's like, because you had mentioned about even with price increases, you still find it less profitable than summer production. So then my question is, how much should we be increasing prices to match summer profitability?
Oof. That's a great question. I don't even know if, honestly, like, our markets or any market could really handle a straight line equation there.
Yeah.
I bet you even in, like, I have no idea, but maybe like the farms in California and stuff make less money in the winter. I don't know.
Yeah.
But we do it for multiple reasons. Number one is to keep staff on year round. It's been a goal of us to provide as many year round jobs as possible. And we've never actually laid somebody off for the winter, just because it sucks. And we're trying to get as many long-term year-round employees as we can. And because of that, we have 2 great managers on this farm that we've developed. We have other great staff members who are on year-round. And it's because we provide year-round employment. No one wants to, as an adult, bounce around from job to job for seasonal work. And so that's the number one reason. And I think it's essential. If you're going to try to have like a management crew, you got to be paying them year-round. If you want like solid team members that you can rely on, you got to be paying them year-round. Yeah. And then 2, it's like we want our market to have produce from us year-round. And not only do we want them to have it, but like, it's just really good for your business to be on the shelf 12 months of the year. It just looks great in the way that, I mean, I'm not a marketer, but the way customer mindset works is if they can get it every single week that they go to the store, they're going to be a much more dedicated customer than bouncing around or something like that. And the grocery stores really appreciate it. The restaurants really appreciate it. If you're selling lettuce to them in the winter and they love it, they're going to keep buying it through you all summer long when sales double and triple. So we kind of see it as like, I mean, we don't really make much money in the winter. We're just like, we're not losing money.
Here's another question. Some farms have sort of been playing around with the concept of just doing winter production because, again, another challenge is how do you ever build in time off? How do you actually not burn out by farming 12 months out of the year? So, it's sort of the requirements of being able to maintain a healthy business is you have to be, operating 12 months of the year. But then how do you mitigate that challenge of when do you get time off? How do you, this is farming. It's constantly taking always.
I don't know either. Personally, I really question the self-owned and managed farm model where essentially you don't have staff or staff's insignificant and you, the owner, plus your partner, if you have one owner type of thing, like do everything. I just don't really know if that's like a long-term sustainable method. Just because how do you get a break? I have no clue. I mean, you're responsible for everything, every single hour of the year. To us, I mean, we've been trying to grow this business to be like a larger, this weird, somewhere between a small and mid-sized farm, where we can have a management team we can rely on. Bailey and I do get away for a few weeks every winter, and they run the show, and it's, stuff breaks and they don't know how to fix it, and some things go wrong, but it's never been like the end of the world, and they've done an amazing job while we're gone. And so that's really that's kind of like the model we're going for. We're not everything rests on my shoulders, and I can, and the same thing for Bailey, like not everything rests on her shoulders. And so that's the business model we're going for.
Yeah. I mean, it again, it's really this sort of very interesting merging of kind of standard business models with the farming, the unpredictability of farming itself, especially on a small scale. And how do you merge the two together so that you can have some stability? Because otherwise, like you just, shared that other model is just so difficult, both, mentally, financially, to be able to be a sustainable business model for a lifetime.
Yeah. So. That's where I go, I'm 31, I think, maybe 32. And it works. I mean, in my 20s, I had energy for a millennia. I could do whatever I want, and it's not like I'm that much different. But we're not working 90-hour weeks anymore, which we were. But I feel like once you stop doing that, you can't go back. And we're still working way more than the average person. And when does work stop? When does it not? I'm often on my computer looking at, how to solve this problem or X, Y, and Z, or, how much fertility does this crop need in my spare time? So it's is that work? Is it not work? Who knows? I mean, that's just the life of small business ownership, where you live, breathe, you live, breathe, and eat everything with the business. But we're not, I'm not back-breaking sweat every single hour of the day. And I just can't imagine, especially as we get older, having all of that rest on my shoulders and, wanting to be able to have retirement and provide for children and that kind of stuff. It's just.
Yeah. So can I ask, are you able to, does the farm support both of you, comfortably? Are you able to save for retirement, potential, college funds, all of those things? Will you be able to build all of that in with the model that you've created? Yes.
I would definitely say yes. We've grown significantly. We're on year 5 or so now. We are crossing we were over the 500,000 gross sales mark. And we've put, every single dime back into the business. And just this past year, we have opened IRA accounts and we are saving for retirement. And, as we mature this business out of infancy in such a growth stage to more of an adolescent stage, we are hoping, the profitability is there. We've just been pumping it all back in versus taking some of it out. It's the business model works great for us. We're excited to see what the next few years bring.
Yeah. No, it's great to hear this. Again, like it's crazy how the approach really does influence, all of these, the ability to be able to do all of these things. And if you don't follow a particular approach, it's an uphill battle to do all of the things that you're trying to do.
Yeah. And I would say, some of the things we really do that are unique or different is, we don't grow 100 different things. As I mentioned, 70% of the gross sales is from like 5 different crops. And we do, is that boring? Yeah, it's not as much fun as growing 100 different things. I'll say that loud and clear, but it's definitely the better business model. We are known for those crops, like in our area. And so you develop, we're known for this specific thing. And so people buy it. And it allows you to just really like nail down a really good production system for those crops. You're not like chasing a million different things. And we still are. It feels like we're chasing a million different things, but we've really gotten really good at growing tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, lettuce, and other big leaf greens. And we don't do our own CSA. The growers co-op that we're a part of has a multi-farm CSA that we're a part of, and we provide the crops that we grow for that multi-farm CSA. And I think that model's good. I think like the retail food sales is great. It's just such a consistent sales. And yeah, the profit margin isn't as high as the farmer's market, but there's so much more volume going through the retail grocery store than the farmer's market. We drop off the grocery stores, like some of the grocery stores are, 2 drop-offs a week, and each one's more than we can ever do at the farmer's market. Right. People buy food at grocery stores. That's where people in the U.S. buy their food. Yeah. Farmers market shoppers are great, but even the people that go there probably aren't buying the majority of their groceries at the farmers market.
Right. Or it's inconsistent. Yeah. Or it's inconsistent.
Yeah. So I wouldn't necessarily just say like, well, I can make 30% more at the farmers market. Like volume does come into the equation.
Yeah. Gosh, there's so many questions. I love I think you have a really great model, and it's exciting to just to see all the potential that exists, especially considering still how relatively young the farm is. So,
yeah. And, I'll talk about winter greens because I'll never forget the first time I walked into a hoop house at Michigan State University at this tuna organic farm in February. Mm-hmm. And I think I was a freshman and we were getting a tour of it for one of our classes. And I was like, well, why are we going to the farm in February to look at an unheated hoop house? Like, it's going to be a big pile of mush. And they pulled back the row cover and it was like, bright green leaves of who knows what at that point, probably spinach. And I was just like, whoa. That like first moment. And, anytime you have someone come to the farm and show them greens in February, you get the same reaction. And, it is just this like incredibly cool thing to do. And so we've been on a mission to figure out how it works. Salanova is our biggest seller in the winter. And we fill a lot of our greenhouses up with Salanova. We paper pot transplant all of our Salanova. And we just do the model where you fill up the entire tunnel, square, like no walking paths, and just harvest your way out. That works great. In the past, we always like ripped out all of our tomatoes and cukes mid-September and then planted the Salanova in time. We usually do like 4 or 5 different week-long successions of Salanova to get us through the entire winter. So we'd rip out tomatoes and then we'd prep everything. And then 2 weeks later, we'd flame weed the entire thing. We did just buy a soil steamer. And so we steamed this year. So we got 2 more weeks of tomatoes out of the whole deal, more or less, because you can rip out, steam the same day, and then plant the next. And then it's just like we had the best lettuce in the world after steaming, which is new to me, but it's just like the best stuff we've ever grown after steaming. Is kind of incredible. But
what was the investment on that steamer and also the knowledge learning curve?
We bought it. It's a Sioux steamer, the ones that all the farmers are using these days. We bought a 50 horse model, which is the mid-size one. And we can steam. It takes 3 steam cycles to do one of our 34-foot wide tunnels. So it's about 7 or 8 hours, like one day per tunnel, more or less. God, how much was the steamer? It was like 60,000 all said and done. When you crunch it out, it pays for itself. And just for us, just the extra tomatoes and cucumbers, like the extra 2 weeks, it pays for itself in like 6 or 7 years just from those extra 2 weeks. I mean, we also bought it we have quite a bit of disease pressure in the tunnels from growing tomatoes and cucumbers year after year. So we hope to be able to make a lot more money there. And then the weed-free part of the whole thing is just like one of those things where it's like you plant, it's like even if when you flame weed 2 weeks later, you still get the late germinating weeds.
Yeah.
And it's just like there's not a single weed in this entire tunnel. It's like so that
a lot less flavor for sure.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows Andre Cantalmo, and he's been the big resource for seeding from us. But we've found that Salanova works really well for our methods. So we'll plant Salanova like late September, early October, and we'll be able to harvest from that 4-week succession more or less from Thanksgiving through mid-March. And maybe it's just the fact that we are cold and cloudy for that long, where the crop it's just like a walk-in cooler. We plant it so that, about half of it's like ready to harvest by Thanksgiving. And some of it's like, a couple weeks, like 1 week out as far as like summer growth goes by the time we hit Thanksgiving. And then we get growth in February once we're past the Persephone period. And that brings like those successions into maturity in February and March. And it's just worked so well for us.
Any second cuts? Are you doing any second cuts?
We don't. And that's because in the past, we've had a lot of like lettuce drop, I think is the common term for the disease. But after we harvest, it just turns into mush. Now, this year we steamed, and a lot of the stuff that we harvested already, I'm like noticing like fantastic regrowth, 0 lettuce drop. So now I'm going like, man, maybe we could probably get a second cutting off of that rather than like ripping it out and replanting. So we might reconsider that with the steaming, but until before then, we just had too much like disease pressure in the winter that was causing that. But so we even had we lost heat in one of the tunnels like a month ago, got down to 18 degrees for the entire night, and all the Salanova like rebounded. Like I was like, wow, weird. Because before then I figured, I think it's like the Arnolds that say it's like 26 temperature is that threshold. So I was like, it's for sure gone. And it came back. It looks great. So I don't know. It's like, maybe we don't need heat. It's just like, do we need all the heat? Do we need it at 32? Like, I don't know if I want to risk it.
I know. No, it's a good question. I mean, I think people are constantly, that's a dilemma is, do we want to risk the potential loss by taking that risk? But I have noticed that things are a lot more resilient than I even ever anticipate. So it is always pretty fascinating. And just how much can you push that? Can you push it more and more? And maybe you can.
Yeah. And sometimes it like freezes and then it bounces back, but it's not really like market quality.
Yep.
And I mean, we must have gotten lucky or something because this stuff looks fantastic. It's still market quality. So, and I was so thankful because there was like half a ton of lettuce. So $5,000 or something of lettuce in there. So we got lucky, but yeah. And then like the kale and arugula is just like kind of like our standard bed systems in the tunnels. And we just usually harvest that, and we'll get cuttings up through Christmas. And then it seems like we can never plant enough when we run out for December, January, and then we'll get regrowth. And
how are you seeding and harvesting the baby?
Sure. The baby leaf greens we just seed with 5-row Jang, just the standard 5-row Jang, and then we just use the standard Farmer's Friend greens harvester. I like the Farmer's Friend's greens harvester just because it's so easy to carry all around the farm. You can harvest from this spot and then run over there and harvest from that spot. You're not moving this piece of equipment around.
Yeah.
And it works for us. We recently just bought I think it's the coolest thing, a 2-row paper pot transplanter.
Okay.
So we do 4 rows per bed in the summer. And so And we bought a mechanical cultivator. And the big thing is like, how do we run a mechanical cultivator on paper potted Salanova? So we got the system dialed in, but essentially people should be buying this 2-row paper potter because it takes the same amount of time as 1 row and you plant 2 rows. So that's a big shout out for that company.
Is it manufactured by the same, who's manufacturing it?
Yeah, the same company.
Yeah.
You can, I don't know, we direct import all of our paper pot stuff from Japan to save a ton of money. But you can probably buy it from, I think the guy in Wisconsin, why am I blanking on his name? He's been a great resource. But I think he sells the 2-row ones as well. John, I'm sorry for him if he listens to this. But it's nice because you can move you can move the thing apart. So you can do rows that are like 24 inches apart and then just spin a little hand nut and shrink it down to 4 inches between them. So it's really variable.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, yeah, that sounds like a game changer for sure. Oh gosh, there's so many more things to talk about, but I think we're getting to our lightning round time. So let's see here. Yeah. Actually, one other question I have, just your LED system. What was sort of the reasons for bringing that in? Do you think it'll pay for itself? I mean, all of those, like, does it feel like there's something weird going on with crops that are growing under LED lights that you're consuming? Does it change any of that? I don't know. There's all that sort of like, what is this? What is this changing?
So, one, I would say it's like, we use it as supplemental lighting. We don't have enough lights to kind of do like a blackout only LED light. So it's kind of like a supplemental for those cloudy days. We've moved all of our greenhouses onto a new environmental control system through Maximus. It's Maximus Ag Technologies, I think, and they're the environmental controller company. But we have all these sensors, and so we have all these LED lights, and then we have a lux meter in the greenhouse that reads outdoor ambient light. So when outdoor ambient light goes above a certain threshold, that's 25,000 lux for us, the grower lights turn off, and that's on a timer as well. So for 15 hours a day, it's reading that. And then we have obviously, it's a greenhouse. We have ambient light as well. But it's a new investment. We recently switched from just standard, we built all these lattice bench tops out of 2x4s and plastic lattice, which is as cheap as you can get, which was great for day one because it's a bench and it works. And they were just on cement blocks. And so this year, through FSA, we were able to finance the soil steamer as well as the LED lights. And then we bought new rolling flood tables, for the entire greenhouse. So now it's all on a rolling bench system. So we saved about 25% more bench space for the same heating cost. And they all flood from the bottom up. And that's mostly for microgreens and shoots to keep all the leaves dry. It really helps with mold and mildew. And then the LED lights are Total Grow LED lights. It's a company here in Michigan. And they're a more affordable base system, and they're designed for greenhouse environments, not indoor marijuana grows. So they're built a little bit better for that. And our utility company, which is Consumers Energy, has a very large rebate for LED grow light installs. So, and it's mostly thank you to the marijuana industry for this, because we're never going to be using utility bills to pay for the rebate. But we got 70 cents per watt installed, all in all about $40,000 in lights, and we got a $17,000 rebate. So seemed good to us. We did shrink our microgreens and shoots are about a week and a half shorter on average. So we're saving on heating costs there. We don't have to expand the greenhouse space. So that kind of double duty there. There are larger, more weight per tray, as well as the decreased time and better quality. And then we've been growing in the in-ground production part of the greenhouse. We've been growing bunching greens all winter long. So kale, celery, chard, whatnot. I don't really know. We're going to calculate it once we're done with those crops to see what the payback was. It's certainly December and January, when there was almost no outdoor ambient light. We didn't have much growth at all, But then as soon as the Persephone period passed, we've been getting just monster quantities of bunches off those greens. So I don't know if that pays for itself or not. We can all just turn the lights off in the winter if we're not growing stuff there. But it'll be great we're hoping to extend summer fruit, like a small section of summer fruit. So tomatoes, cucumbers, peppers, and whatnot to grow in there pretty much through Thanksgiving, just for our farm market, and then start them even earlier as well in that greenhouse just for the farm market as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's definitely so many advantages. So it's great that system is working for you, especially, because January is, man, things just shut down on growth in January.
Yeah, so we'll see. So to make note of that, up till this year, we have been growing microgreens and shoots without any additional lighting, and it's certainly possible. So it's possible. I wouldn't necessarily not do them in the winter if you didn't have lights. I'm very confident that the lights will pay for themselves and the utility bill will pay for itself. It's just one of those, it is more energy, but where do you're feeding more people, maintaining your market, keeping your employees employed, all these different pros and cons. And, hopefully we can get more renewable energy systems into the whole farm and the world sooner than later.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you might have recalled, my interview with Brian Bates. He was using a full LED system at his farm. So yeah. So it was working for him, and he was a big proponent of it. So. Yeah.
One thing I will say is it's really nice to walk in there on a really cloudy day in January, and it just feels like you're in a, June greenhouse. It feels really cool. Ours is just it's a standard spectrum. It's not like the purple lights or anything like that. So it just feels like it's a really sunny day.
Yeah. No, that feels good. You don't have to go to Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And then one other thing I wanted to congratulate you on, because I saw this on your Instagram, was that you and Bailey got engaged in January. Is that true?
Yeah. It only took 6 years. We've just been pushing it off for so long, just because we're so busy with the farm. But I'm glad that life's not going to get any easier anytime soon. So
you might as well go for it. And you're going to have a wedding this year too. You're going to have it on the farm?
We are an on-farm wedding. We'll see how that goes.
And in summer, which is the craziest time. Good luck with that. I'm sure it'll be a blast though, and a nice little diversion from all the other chaos. Well, great. Well, let's jump into the lightning round questions. Let's see here. We've got first one, what's your favorite crop to grow, cook, and eat?
I'd say it's a tie between cucumbers and tomatoes. I just personally think, especially we grow a lot of Lebanese cucumbers. And then we also grow this one variety called Quirk, which I have to give a shout out to. Johnny sells the seed, and we just sell mountains of these little tiny cute green and white cucumbers to market and their retail stores. It's a delicious cucumber, but flavor and quality of those Lebanese cukes grown on the farm is just incredible. We grow Socrates is a major one, along with Piccolino and then Katrina in the summer. And then we grow all heirloom style tomatoes. So it's a lot of they're greenhouse hybrid varieties, which we do just because they perform so much better in the greenhouse environment than true heirlooms do. And the flavor, quality, texture is all the same. And cherry tomatoes to go with that. But
are you grafting?
We are
grafting? Yeah.
We're learning grafters, so we're not great at it, and we never usually seem to get 100. We always way over plant to graft, but we don't get enough. So we're trying to get better at it. They're extremely profitable crops. One, so I love that, and two, I just love how much further you can take those crops. You grow a head of lettuce, you get a head of lettuce, you can nail down the best system for growing lettuce pretty quickly. But it just seems like with summer fruit and crops, there's always something else you can do. And there's always one more thing that always gets thrown, like a wrench that's thrown into the system, whether it's pests or diseases, but it's a challenge, and it can forever be improved. So those are why they're my favorite to grow.
Good point. I agree. It's it seems very hard to crack the tomato cucumber summer fruiting crop challenge. Yes.
Yeah. we do a great at it, but it's like, every year we do better.
Yeah, great. What gets you up in the morning?
Responsibilities, for the most part, but a passion for it. I mean, the straightforward answer is an alarm clock, but yeah, I love what I do, and I'm always excited to take on the day and get something done.
What is the hardest part of farming for you?
So Bailey and I would both agree that the hardest part of farming for us is employee management. We are not born and bred managers. We both kind of love it's the book. There's a bunch of really great books out there. I'm trying to think of the one I was thinking of, but the E-Myth Revisited is a good one. But at heart, we're both technicians. We both love to do our jobs on the farm, not necessarily run the business. So we're learning to become business owners and managers, number one, and farmers number two. But we're both farmers number one. So and I mean people are incredibly hard to work with sometimes. And great employees are also really hard to come by. So if you get one, you got to really hold on because there's only so many amazing employees, and there's a lot of employees.
Yeah, no, it is a constant learning process for sure. Endless learning.
And being a good boss is finding that balance between pushing people to work harder and pushing too hard is a very fine line.
Yeah, no, I mean, just as complicated as we are as individuals, makes it just as hard to know how to relate to others as individuals, right? So, what's your favorite tool?
Undoubtedly, the one that we rely on the most is a tractor loader. I just could not. I mean, even when I started my first quarter acre farm, we still bought a small 20 horse Kubota with a loader on it. The amount of lifting that thing does is incredible. And if I had to carry all that stuff by hand, I definitely would not have a back anymore. So I couldn't imagine doing it all with a walk behind. We still own a walk behind, and we use it and it has its spot, but I just don't know how you do it without a loader on a tractor. So I love it. I love it so much.
How do you turn off farming, or can you, and do you?
Yeah, I think as a small business owner, no matter what the business, you never get to turn it off. It's always there in the back of your mind, no matter what you do. Bailey and I have found that the only way for us to get as close to turning it off is a full separation from the farm. So physically removing ourselves. Luckily, we both do like to travel, but it's not like we get away that much. But when we do, we try our best. We still, every vacation we take is still a working vacation. Bailey does all of the, account management with all of our wholesale accounts. So she's communicating 3 times a week and always taking orders and putting out availability and putting together all the harvest and pack sheets and doing all of the bookkeeping and other business management parts. So that job, she never leaves. And we haven't talked about her much, but half the reason we're successful is because of her, if not more. I mean, her position is a $100,000 position if you were to hire it out. And obviously we're not making that much each. So it's been incredible with her, but she really you don't get a break from that. We have no one who can do that on the farm. So, and we still have to send out deliveries, twice a week, every single week of the year. So physically removing yourself.
Yeah. Is that something that you would want to in the future train someone to do? I mean, it is a curious dilemma because if you're really good at it, it's hard to let that go, but it's also
I don't know.
hard to get a break.
She likes it. But at the same time, I'm sure she wished she had a break. But the tough thing about it is if you want to sell as much as you can, you have to be available 24 hours a day. For people who have questions in your wholesale accounts. I mean, it's you're never off the clock. You're always on the clock. So, and we usually have our, orders come in up till whatever time, and then she always makes the harvest and pack sheet. I mean, at this point, it's a big job, multiple times a week to put together the harvest and pack and order sheet. And she does that at like 9 o'clock at night, 3 times a week. So I don't, this day and age to find someone willing to do that is hard to imagine. So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Good answer. What do you love besides farming?
I love cross-country skiing personally. And more like backcountry cross-country skiing. So just going for a ride in the woods on trails is my favorite thing in the winter. And that's what gets me through the winter. We both love traveling. We both love hiking. Just being outdoors and enjoying it. We have a dog that we love to play with and have fun.
What would you be doing if you weren't farming?
I don't know actually what Bailey would be doing. Like, I don't know what her answer would be. For me, I'd probably be like, I don't know, an electrician or something like that, or a plumber. I really like trade work. I really like building stuff. Kind of as mentioned, like we've built everything on the farm more or less. We had a company build the pole barns, but we've built out all of the pole barns. I've done all the electric, all the mechanical, all the plumbing. So I enjoy that. I also love operating heavy machinery. So I think I'd like, running a dozer for a summer or something like that. I don't know, but something that I get to work every single day outside and do physical labor.
Well, good thing you're a farmer then, because all those things you mentioned are pretty necessary.
Yeah, and it's great because I get to do something new every single day. I mean, it's the perfect occupation for me because I don't know if I'd want to do electric every single day, but if I get to do electric 15 days out of the year, it feels great.
Yeah. Yeah. What's one piece of advice you wish you had starting out, or something you wish you had done differently?
I don't know. I mean, I do enjoy having my own farm. I also, if I had known that I could get a job on a farm, that would be year-round employment and be great. Maybe I should have just done that. I think the mindset needs to kind of change in the small farm world, where it's like the only route to being a farmer is to own your own farm. I think that as our community grows and we develop these a little bit larger farm businesses like ours, like I think working for someone else is a very viable option. And I wish it didn't even like cross my mind. It was like, you either own your own farm or you don't. So I wish that crossed my mind as I was a beginning farmer. I wish I had known how bad of a business it is in like a business sense.
Risky business.
I go like, yeah, I mean, it's like the worst business you could ever start, really, if you look at it in that sense. But I mean, but at that time of my life, I didn't care. I wasn't, and I'm still not in it for the money, obviously. But maybe I would have preferred to be a hobby farmer and then own some other business that kind of like was much more profitable and ran itself, and I could just relax or something a bit more. But yeah, I wish that too.
Yeah, no, good answers. I especially your first answer. I think that is a really important point, that we need to create more resilient farms that can hire people year round and provide those meaningful jobs, so that not everyone has to go off and start their own farm, or because so many people can't either. I mean, that's the other big.
I mean, it's incredible how much money this whole thing is sucked up. It's like, it's incredible.
Yeah. What do you long for, and how does that influence how you farm?
I long for, like, I don't even know, continuous improvement. My brain is like, I'm one of those people where I never see the present. I only see the future. Bailey's much different, and that's how we do balance ourselves. She like only sees the present. So she only sees like the chaos and what needs to get done today. And I'm like, in a couple of years, I want to do this. So I think I long for continuous improvement, and I long for what the farm's going to be in 15, 20, 25 years, which is also kind of ironic in a business management sense. Like, you own a business where there's really no intention to sell the business, which is different. I just to note that, like, someone mentioned that to me at one point, and it just never crossed my mind that farms are so different than any other business because there's usually no intention to sell them.
Yeah.
But
yeah, they're the fabric of your life, really.
yeah. So that I long for, a little bit slower life. We're hoping to have kids in the near future, and I really hope that like things calm down a bit before then. So that I do long for a slower pace.
Yeah. And finally, how will you grow old farming?
Obviously to be determined, but I think ideal scenario is like, as a classic farmer, ideal scenario is that child I have takes over the farm. But even if it's not, like someone else takes over the farm and we figure out financial transition, but I get to just putz around all day and work on projects and have fun while I don't have to necessarily worry about the day-to-day goings on of the farm. Is kind of like that's like my ideal growing old type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that sounds good. Well, thank you. Thank you so much, John. This has been such a fun, endless conversation. I'd love to keep talking to you. I could for hours. So there's so much to learn and talk about. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. Well, and I know everyone mentions it too, but, like your father's just been such an inspiration, and your whole family farm has been such a inspiration to this entire community. We're just so lucky for you guys, and really appreciate what you've all done.
Well, thank you. And it's so great to see farmers like you just completely take it to a new level. It really is. It's inspiring to me because obviously I have a very specific perspective, on it. And it's great to see how we can expand all of this year-round growing. So good job. Awesome job. Well, thanks again. And
Thank you.
Good luck the rest of this early spring for you.
Thanks, Clara.